We just learned about drop-down menus, and that is a technique for data validation, but there are other data validation options at our disposal. And data validations in general are just making sure that whatever we enter into the cell are within the parameters of whatever, as the creator of the Excel workbook, whatever we decide that it can be. So let's take a look at another example. Here I have that marketing team tasks, but instead of having the employees here, let's say that I want it to be feedback. So I'll select those cells, and again, I'll go back to the data ribbon and click on data validation, the check and the X. When I click on that, remember before we used this drop down to select list, but now let's take a look at some of the other options. I could ensure that it can only be a whole number and it'll give an error if somebody tries to put in anything other than a whole number, or that it has to be a decimal, that it has to be a date, that it has to be a time, that it has to be some certain text length, or I can set up something custom. For feedback, let's say that I want to make sure that they actually give feedback and they don't just put a period or space or something so that it's filled in, but they didn't actually have to put any information. Let's say that I want to make sure that they actually put some effort into it and provide some feedback. In that case, maybe I'll use text length. So I want to make sure that it is, I could say between, or I could say greater than. Let's say that it's greater than. And we want to say it's greater than 10 characters. So 10 characters total is how many characters that feedback has to be. Now I can click OK. And if somebody were to try to type something in that was less than 10 characters, it would say that it doesn't match the data validation restrictions for this cell, and they could retry, but it's going to erase what they had there before. I can also edit that error message. So I just went back into data validation and it has everything saved that we did before. And I can change what the input message is and what the error message is. So if they make an error, I could say, hey, make sure that you type at least 10 characters or give sufficient feedback. So this would be my error message to give my user an idea of what they did wrong. If you want to clear your data validation rules, you can select the range where they exist, head back up to data validation, click on where we were before, and now we can allow any value again, and that will ensure that everything is back to normal. I'll type something short and it is allowing that once again. There you go. There's some uses for data validation, and hopefully you're getting some ideas of some different ways that you could use it as well. Maybe something that can only be a whole number, or maybe you're collecting phone numbers and you want to make sure that that phone number is the correct length. Next, we're going to learn all about named cells and ranges, which is going to come into play when we start looking at how to write formulas in future modules.